Hi there, guys. So this is Ronnie again, and I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about something I was just watching recently on the Joe Rogan podcast. And if you don't know, the Joe Rogan podcast it's like a podcast, obviously. So it's an interview with this guy, Joe Rogan, and he talks about all sorts of different subjects. But Joe Rogan is a hunter and a fan of hunting, I suppose, and he's kind of a fan of the keto diet, the ketogenic diet. So his podcast, and it is apparently one of the biggest podcasts in the world, I think, maybe the biggest. And he has a big reach, obviously, but he's had a lot of guests on that speak about like the keto diet and the primal diet and the carnivore diet and stuff like that. And obviously he's had a bunch of hunters and people like that on. And I've had some interest in the podcast. Like, I've not watched it a lot, but does have interesting guests on, and I watched some of it. And I think he's a really skilled interviewer, and he's really skilled in conversation. And obviously he's a comedian and he's good at that stuff. But I think people don't realize how good he is at what he's doing and how he makes these interesting conversations happen and makes people more interesting and brings out interesting things from them and does stuff like that. So it's quite an interesting thing to watch on a number of levels. But anyway, I was watching this thing recently, and he was talking about the idea that bears and wolves, so he's a hunter and he goes out and hunts, but they don't want to get caught by a bear or a wolf because these are really they'll hunt you, they'll eat you, right? So apparently in the US they still have animals that will kill you, right? So in in a place like Scotland or in the Europe or whatever, we killed all those animals a long time ago. So we used to have things that would eat you here, but we killed them all. So there's nothing in Scotland. Wherever I go, if I was to go walking anywhere, I can go completely safe in the knowledge that only another human being is going to be a risk to me. Whereas in America, they still have like quite a lot of wild animals, like mountain lions and grizzly bears, wolves, things like that. So, and in Canada they have these things. I don't really know what that's like to go out and have to worry about, you can't go to this place because there's wolves that live there or whatever, right? So anyway, so hunters have these experiences with wolves, grizzly bears if they go out hunting, and he talks about the fact that a lot of people have this idea of bears as being like really nice animals, and wolves are like really beautiful animals, but they're like really violent, brutal killers. Basically, they kill things and eat things, and they don't just kill, but they eat things alive. So bears will apparently chase an animal down or whatever, but as soon as they've got that animal down, they'll just start eating into it. They don't try and kill it first or anything. Once the animal's kind of like captured, they just start eating it. And wolves will do the same apparently. They'll just eat things alive while they're in tremendous pain. And he was talking to this hunter, and they're kind of talking about the idea that, human beings, when we kill things, we kill it and then we eat it, or we, make sure it's dead before it gets eaten, because that's like a humane thing to do, whatever. Which is interesting, the word humane, right? Because that's really where the word humane comes from. If you if you're going to eat something, at least kill it so that you're not eating it while it's alive, right? So you're kind of reducing the amount of pain. Now, in the animal world, there are examples that animals will kill the animal before it's being eaten. That does happen as well. So I'm not sure why bears and wolves and stuff don't do it. But anyway, what was interesting is even though they are hunters and even though they are meat eaters, they are still showing the signs of being disgusted and horrified by that. Horrified by the idea of an animal killing an animal and eating it while it's still alive. They're horrified by that, disgusted by it. They don't like that. The reason is because we are not meat eaters. Human beings are not meat eaters, and we've been so forced in society to go against our instincts on many different levels that we think that it's normal to not go with your instinct. So the fact that you think it's disgusting is just a sign of your own weakness or whatever. Just like the fact that you don't want to get up and go to work because you're tired is like a sign of weakness in society or whatever. You should do it anyway because it leads to a good result or whatever. But that's different, because obviously that's a completely, I don't want to say unnatural, but getting up for a job or something is not really, is a kind of created experience. But eating is a natural experience, right? So all animals eat. But all animals also should not feel disgust for their food. And when these guys who are actual hunters and are used to killing animals, or fairly used to it, are still feeling a sense of horror and disgust for the idea of animals eating animals alive, then it just, to me, amplifies the fact that we are not carnivores. Clearly we're not carnivores. Clearly we're not carnivores, because we just don't have the hunting ability of a carnivore. If we had to have meat to survive, we would have to be much better equipped to kill and eat, like a cat. A cat is a carnivore, a killing machine. It is a killing machine. Human beings, our advantage over other animals is our ability to work together in a far more sophisticated way than any other animal can. We can plan ahead, we can think in advance, we can create tools, we can dominate every animal on the planet because we are smart enough and because we could work together. And there is no animal, apart from like maybe insects and stuff, no, well, even them, bacteria, I don't know, there's no animal that could defeat us or dominate us because we can do that. And ultimately that's more powerful than any muscle or whatever, than any strength or any size. If the dinosaurs were around there, we would dominate them. We would have made them extinct. That's brain over brawn, right? Basically, that's our ability. And that's allowed us to be able to hunt and do these things if we had to. But we're not carnivores, so that's fine. Are we omnivores? Like, they were having a discussion about bears eat animals often from the asshole up the way or something like that. So I don't really know exactly why omnivores would do that, but there's a sense of disgust about that. You know, it's disgusting, and it is disgusting. And if you're a meat eater, you need to accept that. We are disgusted by the idea of eating dead animals because we are not adapted to eat dead animals. We are not adapted to eat dead animals. That's why you are disgusted. That emotion of disgust was hardwired into the human race over many, many generations, millions of years probably, to force us to not do that action. Because if we came across a dead animal and ate it, there's so many problems it would give us. We're not adapted to eat that, so it gives us problems. In the last, 50, 100 years, however long people have been, eating a lot of meat, because we've not been eating a lot of meat for a long time. Don't you keto diet people and stuff and carnivores, humans have not been eating that much meat for a long time. And especially not stuff like steak. I mean, you can't just kill a cow every day or every couple of days to feed, it's silly. So we've not been eating that much dead flesh. Yeah, it's always been part of the diet, but it's always been a very limited part of the diet. And most of the time people were eating plant foods. vast majority of the time. And that's why we're adapted to eat those things. And if you go back far enough before we were cooking, the only thing we could have been eating is fruits and vegetables, because it's the only thing that we can really digest raw. Maybe nuts and seeds as well, and a few other things. And when you're starving, we would have eaten anything, yes. But the whole point I'm trying to get to, I suppose, is how can you argue with that as a meat eater or an omnivore if you're actually trying to promote the idea that meat is a natural thing to eat or a good thing to eat or the best thing for us to eat? Why are you disgusted by the idea of doing so? And you might say, well, we're not disgusted by the idea of eating meat. Yeah, I get it. You're not disgusted by the idea of going and picking up a nice sanitized piece of, steak or something, putting it in a pan, putting in so much garlic and salt and oil and chili peppers in it so that you completely mask the taste. Put in a sauce that has sugar in it and salt, so it actually has some modicum of flavour. Cook it so that it's completely not the texture that it would be if it was, have all the hair removed by someone else, have all the veins, the bones, the ventricles, all that stuff removed by someone else, so you don't have to see that process happening. I mean, the reason that people are happy to walk around orchards, but they're not happy to go and look at videos of slaughterhouses is quite obvious. We are disgusted and horrified by it. Human beings are disgusted and horrified by the killing of animals and quite frankly by the idea of eating animals. But they still do it because we've been conditioned to eat this version of it, which is the sanitized whatever meat thing that doesn't resemble the actual dead body of an animal, so people can eat it without having to think about where it's come from. And I just don't understand why you can't just change that to a tofu thing or a whatever thing that's healthier for you, probably has more nutrition in it, and is less damaging to the environment and the planet and everything, healthier for you, and you don't have to kill an animal in the process. You don't have to breed an animal in the process. The animal never had to even be alive. This is the kind of strange thing about the whole process. Breeding billions of animals that don't have to be bred, taking up all this space, eating most of the food. It's a crazy situation. So you are disgusted by it. I'm disgusted by the idea of maggots or insects. So people say, oh, we're meant to eat insects as part of a diet. I'm personally disgusted by the idea of eating insects or grubs and stuff like that. Like, maybe you can be conditioned to eat that, and I know that traditional societies do that stuff and eat these things. Personally, I'm disgusted. If I was to open up a piece of fruit and there's maggots inside, I would jump out of my skin. I do not want to see a maggot, a fly, or anything near my food, right? I don't want to have grubs or anything running about. It's disgusting to me. It's viscerally disgusting. And it is my millions of years of evolution saying to me, don't eat this. Don't eat this. Don't touch it. Throw it away. The same as when you open up a box of fruit and there's mouldy fruit and you're like, it's sickening, right? Sickening. Our system is so sensitive. It's telling us with every fibre of our being, do not eat this. It's amazing, So, please put in the comments below, how can you argue with that? How can Joe Rogan argue with it when he even confirms it? And he's meant to be a hunter and all this stuff, and he's talking about how disgusting it is and how horrifying it is for animals to be killed and eaten, basically. And showing compassion for the pain of these animals, and they're like, oh, well, at least when we're hunters we make sure the animal's dead, but I don't know, it's still like a bullet going through this animal's body. Can't be that nice in its last minutes. But anyway, thank you for watching the video, and if you want to hear more videos like this, put something in the comments below, subscribe to the channel, share it around, and tell me if you think you agree with me or not, and if you don't agree with me, why do you not agree with me on that? Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.